Yes. Good morning, everyone. I just want to remind everyone that we are recording this meeting and it is streaming live online to the public. So sorry for those who read out their cell phone numbers.
We'll try to edit it.
But we do have a pretty robust agenda for this morning's cabinet meeting. Thanks to all the district managers who logged in successfully. Again, it's very good to see your faces and to hear your voice. We have 3 city agencies who have graciously accepted the invitation to come and deliver a report to our community boards. We have the Commissioner of the New York City Department of Small Business Services, Gregg Bishop. Very good to see you, Commissioner. Followed by the Commissioner, we will have speakers from the Department for the Aging, specifically Deputy Commissioner Khalili, and then followed by the New York City Department of Education. We've got a Deputy Chancellor for Community Empowerment, Partnerships, and Communications here with us today. Before we begin, I just want to remind our cabinet members we have a number of items coming up this week, and we want to encourage you to join. This evening, we have a borough-wide interfaith vigil starting at 5 o'clock, and that will stream online on our website, queensbp.org. And you know, here in the epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic, we will pray together for those lives lost. We have suffered thousands of losses over the past month. But also pray for those who are still working around the clock on the front lines, our essential workers, et cetera. You know, the pandemic has been a magnifier on many folds, certainly for Queens. It has magnified the inequities and the deficiencies in our system when it comes to access to things like care and safety. But it's also magnified who the essential workers are, the workers without whom we simply cannot function, we simply cannot live. And kind of a nice segue into the Commissioner's presentation, we will host a jobs recruitment fair tomorrow, April 22nd at 2 p.m. Also, we'll be streaming live. I think everyone in the cabinet has received that notice. We encourage you to publicize that to your respective community districts because contrary to popular belief, there are some industries still hiring despite the devastation to our workforce. And this is both a two-front war on both a health crisis as well as an economic crisis. But we will hold a recruitment fair in partnership with a number of organizations, including Workforce One, Queens Chamber, the Council for Airport Opportunities, possibly the Census Bureau in light of last night's conversation. And you know, it may seem like a lot of these efforts are a drop in an ocean, but that one small drop could make all the difference for entire families and communities. And so with that, without further ado, Commissioner Bishop, we know your time is valuable, so thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you. Just want to make sure everybody can hear me clearly. All right, fantastic. Good morning, everyone, and I thank you, Madam Borough President, for all that you're doing, and for the entire cabinet and the staff here for what you're doing for the citizens of Queens. I have a couple updates for you, but I want to just echo what the Borough President said, and you know, our thoughts and prayers are with everyone across the city, but particularly in Queens, where we know that there's such a epicenter of an epicenter, and so many of our loved ones have been lost to COVID-19. It's been a challenging situation all around across the city, and of course, I thank everyone for sharing that message of ensuring folks actually shelter at home and stay inside and only go out for essential needs. we are seeing a difference. Of course, every life lost is one too many. And of course, my thoughts and prayers are for those who have lost a loved one. It is so important to have partnerships like this because one of the challenges that we have been working on is really how do we get this information into our different communities. I have a couple updates on a general level. I'll talk about some of the programs that we have, some of the programs that the federal government have, and some of the things that's happening now in terms of the next tranche of money that's going to be coming out for small businesses. I apologize for that. As you know, the governor has extended our New York State on pause to May 15th. We recently shared guidance, and this is important for to ensure everyone is clear on this. Businesses can get information from us, and I'll tell you how later on, but it's literally on our website. We have a mailing list that businesses can apply to, and you can too as well, so you can see exactly the language that we're sending out to business owners. We sent guidance recently that was passed by the state that allows non-essential retail establishments that's looking to fulfill delivery orders placed remotely, either via phone or online, that they can now have one employee physically present at their business locations to fulfill those orders, and only to fulfill those orders. We included signage that those businesses can put on their front window, indicating that the store is and should remain closed, but one employee can be in there if they're looking to facilitate and deliver online orders. We have heard some restaurants got confused. They are essential, so they can have as many employees as they want. This is just for the non-essential retail establishments. We've been also working on just the future in terms of creating opportunities through our online learning systems, how businesses should be thinking about moving forward. Hospitality businesses, restaurants in particular, in terms of how they can establish an online presence, how they can fulfill those orders easily, how they can deliver the last mile, and certainly adapt to technology. We have courses that's available for free in terms of e-commerce strategy, marketing, social media. So I encourage you to share that information. One of the things that I've said in many of these town halls is that, when this pandemic, when we get to a level where individuals feel comfortable going out, it has to be closely aligned. And one of my, my colleagues will talk about this in terms of testing. People will not feel comfortable being in confined spaces until we reach a point where there's mass testing or a vaccine. So that is some time away. So we have to make sure that we prepare our businesses for the change in consumer behavior short term. We already know consumer behavior was changing even before this pandemic in terms of retail establishments and people buying online, but this has just exacerbated that. So we want to make sure that our businesses are prepared. And some of that look forward thinking is also the advocacy work that I'm doing on the federal level. We are, and of course, we have launched a couple programs, and I'll just be clear and transparent. Those programs were launched when we saw businesses in the Chinatown communities across the city, including Flushing. They were starting to feel the impact of COVID-19 since January. And by mid-February, we knew that we needed to build some programs to help those businesses who were seeing sales declines of almost 80%. When we announced the program, 5 days later, we also announced that all businesses, non-essential businesses, would be closed. So we started with programs that was focused on one particular problem and ended up having to quickly adjust. All that to say is that our programs became quickly oversubscribed. So once the federal government launched their Paycheck Protection Program, we sunset our employee grant program, and we also stopped and paused receiving additional application for our loan program. As of yesterday, for our grant program, we've assisted and approved over $13 million. For those who don't know, the budget for that was $10 million. We are focused on addressing all the applications that we have currently. We received about 4,000 applications on the day when we were sunsetting the program. So we're going through that right now. We suspect that we will be making all the decisions within the next 3 weeks. So if you have constituents who are still waiting, that is the time frame in terms of the grant program. For the loan program, we've dispersed and we've approved about $6 million. And we have notified, we've had over 8,000 applications for a $22 million fund. So we've notified those that it was first come, first serve. For those where the fund has been exhausted, we have notified them as of last Friday. We are still this morning at 7:30. I was on the phone with a board member of the New York Fed and our CDFIs talking about what we can do to make sure either in the next stimulus that we get some type of allotment of funds for our smaller businesses. We have seen, and you've seen in the media, the PPP, while was flexible and the best way and the best strategy to actually get information, get dollars out to our business community. Really, the implementation had a couple flaws to it. One of it being a lot of the major banks just went to their customers. Most of the small businesses that you know have 10 or less employees, and their capital needs are under $100,000, and they do not have that banking relationship. So therefore, a lot of our small businesses were left out of the first tranche. As you know, or may not know, there's conversations happening right now in Washington. It's a very polarized environment. Speaker Pelosi is really adamant on creating some type of carve out for the CDFIs to address that issue. And there is a lot of lobbying happening all across the country to ensure that happens. So there's a number of things that are happening in Washington that I just wanted you to be aware of. The next tranche of money, I think, is about $250 billion. Our concern, and everyone that has been lobbying, is that if you do and release the money the same way you did the first time, the same result is going to happen. And we all know, that's the definition of insanity. If you try to do the same thing over and over again and you don't make any changes and expect different results. So we are going to be pushing as much as possible to make sure that we do what we can to help our smaller businesses. In the meantime, we want to make sure that all our small businesses are ready for when that happens. One of the challenges we know is just getting the documentation together. So all our NYC Business Solution Centers, and as the Borough President mentioned, our Workforce One centers are all operating remotely. This has been challenging for all of us. As you can see, we are all adjusting to the new world of working remotely. And our agency is working remotely, and our teams have been not only standing up a remote agency, but also standing up remote services to help our small businesses. But individuals can go to nyc.gov/COVID-19BIZ to request any type of assistance preparing their financial documentation, learning about the different resources for small businesses. Even if they do not or cannot get into the capital for disaster loans, there are still banks and CDFIs that are lending traditional capital that we can help our small businesses. And as the Borough President mentioned, our Workforce One centers are providing one-on-one assistance to job seekers either via the phone or the web with job searches and preparations. And information can be found at nyc.gov/COVID-19WF1. So it's short for Workforce One. And we are actually working with about 150 employers to fill over 1,600 positions across the 5 boroughs. I'll talk a little bit about outreach really quickly in the last 30 seconds. And wanted to, I'm not sure if I'm going to get questions now or later, but my goal is really to get into communities of color and really help our smaller micro businesses understand what is out there. So we're working with partners, we're working with elected officials, we're working with social media, emails, broadcast media, et cetera, because those are the communities that hire within their communities, and they're the ones that actually don't know about these things. So any assistance that you can help in terms of your email communications, that would be helpful. We also have focused on providing free legal assistance. So there may be smaller businesses that have to engage with their landlords to ask for either rent deferral, abatement, or reduction. If they don't know how to do that, we can provide them an attorney for free. to help them craft the ask. You can request that at nyc.gov/comlease, so it's short for commercial lease. And that's our commercial lease assistance program. We've also partnered with City Bar to help businesses navigate their insurance claim. We will be advocating in Washington for Congress to actually look into this. A lot of insurance companies, a lot of small businesses have business interruption insurance, and their claims were denied because of a clause in there that talks about virus exemptions for virus and bacteria. We think that in some cases, some policies may not have had that clause. So we want to provide the legal assistance for a business owner to look at the clause with an attorney, figure out their strategy in terms of requesting assistance from the industry. The industry is sitting on about $800 billion. So we think there needs to be some type of act either in Congress, similar to after 9/11, where Congress deems that this is a covered event and now businesses have another source of capital. We've also been working with our Food Czar team to ensure that grocery stores have not only the employees, but also have the ability to get the supplies and that they need to protect their workers. And finally, we wanted to make sure that, if you have any questions, Miguelina Arsti, who is head of Intergov, she's on this call as well. Just feel free to contact her if you have specific questions about any of her constituents. So thank you very much. We will continue to advocate on the federal government side, because only the federal government can really meet the needs of the federal government resources can meet the needs of our small businesses here in New York City. So thank you very much for having me, and happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that very thorough presentation. And if folks, if cabinet members haven't seen yet, if you take a look at the group chat, Miguelina of SBS has included in there all the links that the Commissioner just mentioned that are very helpful. These are resources for our constituents. Are there any questions from cabinet members or comments? Okay, Commissioner, that it was a very, very thorough presentation, and thank you for your service to you and to your team. Thank you.
Thank you.
We look forward to the jobs recruitment fair tomorrow.
All right, thank you very much. Take care. I'm going to hop off and jump on another call, but I appreciate everything that everyone is doing. Thank you very much.
All right, take care now. Up next, we have the Department for the Aging, but I'm just getting word that they're
having some technical difficulties. So if we can go to education, they're trying to fix them and they're letting me know.
Okay. All right. So we will move on to the Department of Education. Good thing that our colleagues in the DOE are on time. As we know, the DOE is the largest school system in the nation, over 1.1 million students across over 1,800 schools. And this morning we have with us the Deputy Chancellor for Community Empowerment and Communication, Adrienne Austin. Good morning. The Deputy Chancellor will update our cabinet on how the department is dealing with the ongoing pandemic, how it will affect our students going forward. There's been a lot of anxiety and concern when it comes to the pandemic and the disruption to the school system, and that has ripple effects into everyone's daily lives. Certainly the pandemic has left very few unscathed. And so there's a multidimensional approach when it comes to caring for our kids, making sure that their education, the disruption to their education is mitigated as much as possible. And before I turn it over to the Deputy Chancellor, I just want to thank the department. I know that it's been a rough few weeks, but certainly from my team, I've heard many, many good things, a lot of praises for how quickly the department has activated the remote learning. Nothing is perfect, but the speed and the comprehensiveness of which has really been remarkable. And it's a testament to the dedication of our colleagues over at the Department of Education. And so with that, Deputy Chancellor, thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Borough President. And thank you to the Cabinet and everyone who's joining us this morning. I'm really proud of the work that we're doing here at DOE. To your point, we've done a phenomenal job. Our teachers are doing a phenomenal job. Our principals, we have school food workers who are working. Our custodians are working. We have a lot of employees who are providing essential services. So kudos to them. Thanks to them for that work, because they're supporting our communities in critical ways. These are unprecedented times, and so we're finding new ways to build community, and I appreciate this opportunity to share information with our families in Queens. So I'm just going to start with some top lines about the resources that we're providing during this crisis. We have over 400 meal hubs across the city, and free meals are available for students and adults. So New Yorkers can pick up free meals a day between the hours of 7:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. We're trying to stagger those times at this point, so we are asking that adults come between the hours of 11:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m., and then that families and children come earlier in the day at 7:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. But we will obviously not turn anyone away, regardless of those time windows, but we are trying to be mindful of social distancing. So no registration or documentation is necessary. And anyone can pick up meals. And we're serving at this point over 300,000 meals a day across New York City. We're serving halal meals, kosher meals, and vegetarian meal options as well. We are also operating regional enrichment centers. Those centers serve our essential workers across the city so that they have childcare while they're going off to work. We serve about 8,000 students daily at those regional enrichment centers, over half of which are the children of our medical workers. So we are expanding our capacity there. We are now serving our medical workers, first responders, transit workers, and we've added eligibility for restaurant, food, takeout, and delivery workers, and residential and commercial building staff. So families can sign up on our website, www.schools.nyc.gov, and that's the best way to sign up if you meet those categories and also need childcare. And then finally, we are continuing to deliver iPads to all families that need them. So we're really proud that we've distributed 142,000 iPads to students in needs. We have committed to providing every parent who signed up for an iPad by the end of the month. So we are on track to meet that target. Those iPads are internet connected through T-Mobile, so students can immediately access online remote learning with those devices. And we are really trying to do a last push for families to sign up. So if families don't have an electronic device that their students can access for remote learning, or they don't have internet service, please sign up on our website, again, www.schools.nyc.gov. Families can sign up to request an iPad, and we are looking to deliver all of them by the end of the month. We have around 250,000 requests at this point. So those are sort of the top lines of what's happening, and I would love to take any questions that people have if they have more specific questions.
And I was remiss in not introducing, I believe we have several executive superintendents here as well. Dr. Andre Spencer, are you still on? I see you. Hi, Dr. Spencer, as well as Mabel Munoz-Sarduy. Is Mabel here? Hi, Mabel, how are you? And let's see. Okay, wonderful. Deputy Chancellor, you mentioned that there are 400 school locations where meals are being served. How many of those are in Queens?
I do not have that number in front of me. I'm not sure, but you know that we have the executive superintendents on the line. They may have that information, what's happening in Queens. So Dr. Spencer or Mabel, do you perhaps have that number, those numbers?
Yes, good morning all. For Queens North, we have 42 sites. We have 11 sites in District 24. We have 10 sites in District 25. We have 7 sites in District 26, and we have 14 sites in District 30.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we roughly have the same amount in Queens South. In addition to that, we have 7 rec sites that are throughout Queens South in District 27, 28, and 29.
Thank you. And Ms. Ardui and Dr. Spencer, can I ask you, that's a lot of meals in a day, 300,000 meals citywide. A portion of that, I'm sure, is here in Queens, because especially with the steep rise in food insecurity. And thank you again to the department for opening this up to all, any and all families and adults. That's certainly been a relief to many. Is there any leftover food?
So we are being really conscientious about inventory. Obviously, we're serving what's, shelf stable food. And so to my knowledge, no, we are being really thoughtful and calculating about our inventory and making sure that, the food is used and given away.
Okay. If there is any leftover, or if there are any sites that have consistent leftover, we have a number of food pantries and senior centers that will pick it up in a heartbeat. So I just wanted to put that on your radar, especially in some of the disproportionately impacted community districts in our borough.
And maybe Dr. Spencer and Mabel may know more about sort of what happens at the end of the day at the food hubs.
I really don't know what happens at the end of the day, but I really know that a lot of our families come as a family. And even if they don't come as a family, they pick up for like 4 and 5 family members for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So they really are using this service, but I don't have that count, but I can definitely find that out.
Thank you. And before we open it up to comments and questions to the cabinet members, Ms. Ardui and Dr. Spencer, is there anything else that you would like to report to the cabinet, or share with the cabinet, I should say?
So I want to share that I want to congratulate the principals, the superintendents, the teachers, the paraprofessionals, and the support staff. We are providing remotely, as you see the challenges that we were having this morning, everybody getting on. Teachers have those same challenges. Principals have those same challenges. Parents have those same challenges. And so we are advocating for people to be flexible and to be patient. And it's a new paradigm shift around teaching and learning. Our children are engaged. We're continuously making sure that children are engaged, and we're really, really proud of that. We want to thank you, the Borough President, for allowing us to be here this morning.
And I want to also second to what my colleague has spoken to. Thank you, Borough President, for inviting us here this morning, and to everyone else. Thank you for that. We do also have a focus on our graduating seniors, because we know that this is going to be a very difficult and different time that they're engaging in, just based on the nature of what we're living. So we're having a stronger focus on how can we engage in some virtual experiences for our graduating seniors, and what will that look like? We are concentrating a lot on the social emotional aspect of our students and our families, because we know that socially we aren't able to connect as we would have ordinarily. So we want to make certain that we're paying very close attention to that as well. But in addition to what Mabel has stated, definitely the hard work of our superintendents, our principals, our teachers, our students and families. This has been really challenging, because our parents aren't necessarily teachers, but now they're having to step in and make sure that kids have adequate time to access the schoolwork that they're being provided with. So we fully understand that. We have structures and systems in place where parents can call in and connect with teachers, or even log in with their kids and connect with teachers, so that we're making sure that we're supporting all of our stakeholders, which is the goal. here. But thank you for the opportunity to share.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from cabinet members? I do have one more question for the department. High school admission letters. I know that those went out a little while ago. What does the appeals process look like in this new reality? How can people appeal if they would, or how can families appeal if they would like?
Adrienne, do you want to jump on that one?
Yeah, I'll let you, Dr. Spencer, I'll let you handle that. Thank you.
Let me just add a couple of things.
We can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Now, yeah.
I think I was on mute or went back on mute. Okay, so there is a waiting list process with the Department of Enrollment. There's not an appeal process. This is new this year, but parents who have questions can go to My School's account. Many parents do have that account, or reach out to the parent coordinator in their school or their guidance counselor. They can find out where they are on that waiting list. Also, in the website, there's an enrollment center website where the parents can find out where they are within the waiting list.
Yes.
So this year, there's no appeals process.
Yes. And if parents need support around that, I would definitely say continue to reach out to your school principal and your teachers. Our superintendents are still meeting with principals virtually, just like we're meeting here as well. And a part of that meeting are the teams from the enrollment centers around Queens. So in making certain that we're staying abreast as to what's actually happening with any enrollment matters that are coming about. But principals, I would say, would be the first line of contact to get the information and get the answers and supports that are needed. And district offices are there to support as well. So we're all still in operation, although we're not physically in the building.
That seems to be the name of the game. All right. Wonderful. Any other comments or questions from the cabinet members?
This is the quietest I've seen the cabinet. I think Florence just chatted, and Frank also has a question from Board 6. So
Okay. Florence Caloris of Board 1, followed by Frank Galuccio of Board 6. And you'll want to unmute yourself.
Hi,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
My question was, how are rising seniors being assisted, and what's happening for the senior athletes who didn't get to finish out their year? A lot of the children are going to depend on that for scholarships and stuff, and they didn't get to finish out their year.
So yes, I can kick us off with that, and particularly looking at our seniors who have completed their academic work up to the point that we left school. What we have highlighted is that seniors who have completed those assignments, that will be credited towards their transcripts, so that we can make sure that once they're graduated, that if they need to send their final transcripts to schools, to their colleges, then that will be something that the college counselors will handle. College counselors are also meeting with seniors, whether they're in small group or individual, to support in the coursework that's getting completed and getting that information off to schools. With regards to athletes, I just think it goes back to some of the circumstances that we are in right now, is just addressing the socio-emotional aspect of how this has impacted students. But what I will also say is colleges and universities are very much aware, because they're in the same situation as we are. And in fact, many of them have stated that for next semester, they will still do their online work. So they have provided opportunities for athletes to not be held negatively accountable for not being able to complete the year as they ordinarily would have. So it's pretty much a no fault in for everybody, just based on the circumstance. But colleges and universities are paying very close attention to that.
Thank you for your fine work. Thank you very much.
All right, and District Manager Frank Galuccio of Board 6.
Thank you, Borough President, and thank you, Andre. My question, you had mentioned iPads going home to the kids to do their work. The calls, a couple of calls that came into our office, a lot of the schools still haven't given out to their entire student body the iPads. So if you have a house, for example, mom's home working on her computer, and they have one iPad and they have 4 kids or 3 kids, the other kids have to wait to the end of the day almost to get onto their lessons. And that's presenting a problem. So is that a hard date that every school will have enough devices out there for their students?
Yeah, so we really are relying on parents to sign up for their students. Every student can a parent can sign up for every child in their household. Every student that has a unique OSIS number. And we have 300,000 iPads to deliver. And so far we've gotten around 250,000 requests. So we still have a good number of iPads to go out to families, but we really need families to either call, and we have a number, it's 718-935-5100.
Wait. Say that again,
718-935-5100, and then it's option 5. So families can call that number, and someone on that line will help them fill out the online request form, or they can go through the website and just complete the online request form. But that's the best way to get an iPad at this point. We are shipping those iPads directly to families through FedEx, so they're door-to-door delivery. And one of the things that we found, as around 175,000 devices were given out by schools with the school's inventory to families. And one of the issues there was that families were bringing them home and then they wouldn't have internet service. So they'd have the actual equipment, but they wouldn't have the internet. So the kids obviously couldn't log on to remote learning. And so this really solves for that. So if families have just the equipment, but they don't have online access, or they don't have equipment, whatever it is, we are encouraging them, please sign up, because we're getting these out by the end of the month, and we want to make sure that every student that needs one has.
Okay, thank you. I'll shoot that out to the powers that be in our neighborhood, in my board. But thank you for your help, and it's a new way of learning, as they say.
Thank you. Yes, indeed.
You're welcome.
And let's not forget that locally, the school, the principal, the parent coordinator, and the support staff, they have those forms readily available and can assist a family in filling out that form. If the family doesn't want to call the central hotline,
Right.
the school is the hub.
I did hear that, and I thought I said that to one of the gals, and but I'll relate all this information back to them, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, Marie Adam Obide of Board 8. And you're going to unmute yourself first.
My question is about graduating seniors, and they're required to do community service, and they're not able to do some of the hours this semester. So what's going to happen with that? Is that something that's going to be waived since they haven't been able to complete the required number of hours?
So I can jump in on that. Many of our graduating seniors have actually already completed their hours before they get to their senior year. But in this situation, what the State Department of Education has done is relieve some of the expectations. So we're still working through some of those expectations with the State Department of Ed, but it's going to be definitely situations where it's a hold harmless circumstance. So not holding students accountable because of the pandemic, still holding them accountable to the academic expectations that they should have achieved from the onset, but not penalizing students during this pandemic situation. But for the most part, the majority of our students, graduating seniors, they complete their hours prior to their senior year.
Thank you.
Great. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Sardui, Dr. Spencer, and of course, Deputy Chancellor Austin. Again, we know your time is precious, and we're delighted that you were able to share some of that, some of your morning with us here today. You're certainly welcome to stay for the remainder of the cabinet, but by no means should you feel obligated to stay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, last but not least, we have the Department for the Aging. I understand that we've got some technical difficulties for the Deputy Commissioner. So in the Deputy Commissioner's stead, we do have Jose Rodriguez. Are you still on?
Yes, I am. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity, Borough President. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, Jose. Jose Rodriguez is the Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, I believe, for DIFTA. And we are eager for your presentation. Thank you very much for being here. As folks know, DIFTA serves our city's population of 1.64 million elders, or also known as older adults. And the agency works hand in hand with many CBOs that serve our constituencies in our respective districts. And so we've got, again, we have Mr. Rodriguez, welcome, and please begin.
Thank you so much. And it's just having the DOE on. I'm also in the midst of homeschooling my son as well as we speak. So it's quite challenging. These are quite challenging days. But again, thank you for the opportunity. Just want to just to indicate, since its onset in January, COVID-19 triggered immediate action within the Department for the Aging because older adults are among the most susceptible to the virus. DIFTA closely monitored the evolving situation and initiated contingency and scenario planning through our Office of Emergency Preparedness within the Department for the Aging. On March 15th, our planning efforts turned to activation and implementation and included effectively overhauling our decades-old congregate meal service. Centers were instructed to shut down all congregate activities and solely provide meals on a take-home basis. This was largely still a local center-based operation serving 100 to 125 individuals, whereby older adults come to the center and pick up and take home their meals. Within a few days, it was apparent centers were stretched as the demand for food increased quickly. Concurrently, public health messages advised older adults to stay home. We had to accelerate the plan for a centralized direct meal service operation where older adults could stay safely in their homes and have a meal delivered directly. This was an ambitious and necessary undertaking. We went from an operation where 300 local centers, each handling 100 to 125 meals a day, to a centralized operation that delivers meals to 35 to 39,000 individuals across all 5 boroughs. Beginning on March 30th, each center member would receive or had received a weekly 5-meal package, either frozen, chilled, or shelf-stabled meals directly delivered to their home. Please understand, and it's important to note that DIFTA took close and deliberate care to satisfy the unique needs and fundamental needs, physical limitations, dietary requirements, as well as religious consideration and cultural needs, and contracted appropriate vendors accordingly. Although successful, given the magnitude and distinction that we incorporated in the plan, the transition was not without any glitches, most of which were addressed quickly. At the same time, the demand for food continued to grow exponentially. One of the things that we had our centers do to help centers identify possible client gaps in the direct delivery system, each center was asked, each provider was asked to provide DIFTA with their active participant rosters. This would allow us to add names not already in our system to receive the direct meals. And so this went on and continues to go on as we transition from and go under the umbrella of the Get Food NYC program that is being instituted as we speak. But to continue, it has become apparent that demand for direct delivery meals far exceeded what our congregate meal system was ever intended to support. Thus, after the 2-week enrollment process by our centers, new enrollees will now, as I stated before, new enrollees will now be absorbed by the city's food czar and her team. Going forward, older adults already not enrolled in direct delivery will be asked to call 311 and be directed to Get Food NYC. Additionally, DFDA's direct meal delivery system will be incorporated into the citywide food and security initiative operated by food czar Catherine Garcia. We are still providing, are still continuing our direct meal delivery until it's fully incorporated into the food czar's greater overall, the city's broader plan to address food insecurity. Any individual, and we are still getting inquiries, any individual who either missed a meal or who felt that they were already part of a center or were part of a roster or a registered list to receive a centralized meal can absolutely call DFDA. And by way of calling DFDA would be our Aging Connect, which would be 212-244-6469, so that we can properly look up that individual just to ensure that that individual is on our list and to triage and try to troubleshoot as to why either a group of individuals or an individual had not received meals. And for the most part, we've been doing that with most of the elected officials, absolutely the Borough President's office, and some of the community boards as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Are you able to turn your video on? There we go.
Wait a second. There we go.
There we are. Okay. All right. It's
got
good
the
to see
COVID-19
you.
beard and everything.
Yeah,
Likewise.
okay. All right. Thank you for that presentation. Would you be able to, you mentioned a number of sites and phone numbers for resources. Could
Yes.
you include that in the group chat when you get a chance so that
Yes.
our district managers who are on the front lines, they will have that ready at their fingertips.
Doing that right now. Yes.
So you talked about the food insecurity and the need and the need for the home delivery or the home delivered meal programs, and that they are on a steep rise. And we understand from our CBO partners, the community-based organization partners, that they are enrolling in excess of 100% capacity enrollment threshold of their existing fiscal 20 contracts. Are there any assurances for these so for example, if a senior center, their enrollment threshold is 100%, and then they're actually serving an additional, 30%. Are there any assurances that these CBOs have that they will in fact get reimbursed for any enrollees in excess of their capacity threshold?
A letter was sent out by the mayor's Dan Simon, who's the director of the mayor's office of contracts, to ensure all providers, social service providers, human social service providers, as long as they abide by and are communicating with their contract providers, and in this case, it would obviously speaking to in reference to DFDA, our providers have been in constant communication through our programs office, through our program officers, and we have been in constant communication. And that letter that was addressed to all of them outlined certain deliverables, certain contract needs, or things that were in their contracts that they had to abide by. There were certain agreements as per that letter, that as long as communication was being done or made with your contract agency, and and the new sort of system as we play it out, and as it been, excuse me, as it has been being played out now, and as long as documentation is properly articulated and that communication with the program officers have been made, reimbursements, to my understanding, should not be an issue. But I can definitely get back to you, to your office on that. But I should say that any community-based organization that has any issue as it relates to DFTA should really be speaking to their program officers on a daily basis. If they have not heard from their program officers, please feel free to contact, my office, our office, and we will do our best to ensure that our program officers address any issues and/or concerns that individual providers may have.
Thank you. We may take you up on that offer. We have a lot of CBOs that are pretty anxious. They're having to restructure. They're certainly not immune to their own share of furloughs and layoffs, and certainly, of course, some of the actual health consequences of the pandemic as well. So for the fiscal 20 contracts that expire at the end of June 30, what happens on July 1 for the excess enrollees? Is there an automatic renewal? Is there a whole new contract process? What happens to the seniors who are relying on the services of the CBOs but are not part of the 100% enrollment capacity, or are in excess of that enrollment capacity?
Yes. That is a good question. I will need to get back to you on that as to what is going to happen in the next fiscal year. These are strange times, difficult times, and a lot of things have changed, and agencies had to readjust and sort of rework what they're doing, as well as our CBOs and especially our external partners. But I will be sure to get back to you on that specific question.
Okay. I have a number of other questions, but let me open up the floor to my cabinet members. If there are any questions or comments. I'll keep moving right along then.
Awesome.
Again, there's a lot of anxiety and concern by CBOs, especially the CBOs that we rely on, that our seniors rely on. We're hearing, and I'm hoping that you can dispel the rumors. We're hearing that the department is, and not my words, is stopping local centers from home delivery meals in favor of private vendors like DoorDash. Is that true? If it's partially true, are private vendors like DoorDash supplemental, or is it replacing some of the services by CBOs? Because as we know, a lot of the clients of the CBOs, they trust who's been coming to their door or who they've seen at the senior center for years on end, and suddenly they're getting deliveries from DoorDash. Can you tell us a little bit more about this partnership with DoorDash and other types of private vendors and part of the home delivery program, and help dispel any anxiety-provoked rumors on that front?
No, absolutely. I think twofold. In order for the health and well-being, our priority was towards our older adults, towards the population that we serve. That was the first priority. Second priority for us was the health and well-being of our providers and their staff, many of whom communicated that with DFTA, that they were extremely conserved, even during the grab and go process that we did early on. Many expressed the not unwillingness to do the grab and go, but sort of the unease and the concern, I should say, is a better word, for their staff that were operating under these conditions, in terms of not really knowing as to what was going on in terms of the COVID-19 and the spread, the lack of certain PPE, I think it's PPE or PEE equipment. And then we just felt, and then once the governor issued the order for us to all stay home, and the pause issue was put out, we directly followed suit with that. And that's what initiated us to follow suit with the emergency contracts, which is why we entered into emergency contract agreements with certain vendors to provide and prepare meals, some of whom did direct delivery, and some just prepared the meals and then only served as dropping off at certain hub locations. And then you would have sort of what we were calling the last mile delivery, where we were using companies such as DoorDash to make the deliveries. And again, it's something similar to what the Foods Are and Get Food NYC is doing with the delivery cab system, where, you know, they're contracting and setting up meals and putting them in delivery cabs, and those individuals are delivering said meals to those who are in need, senior or not senior, older adult or not older adult, I should say. And it's not so much that we did not want our providers to not provide a meal delivery. On the contrary, when we issued guidance, we've issued several guidance to our providers throughout this entire process. One of the things we had issued to them was stating, if you feel or you are capable or able to continue to provide meals, the congregate meal setting has been closed. The grab and go system has been closed. But if you're able to deliver said meal and by all means do so, and if you have that capability and ability to do so, we did not stop you know, those providers who had wanted to continue that process. For us, it's more of the health and well-being of not only our older adults, but also our providers. And many have expressed concerns of the concern that they had with their employees and staff.
Okay. But what I'm hearing from that is, if the provider is still able to deliver meals, that is continuing, and it's more in consultation with the provider in terms of their evolving capacity, or is it?
I mean, if they can, no, if they can do it, and if they have the ability to do so. Okay. You know, again, I always pivot back to, and throughout this process, is providers really should be speaking to their program officers. There's a certain protocol that we've put in place where we have assigned program officers, and those program officers can troubleshoot and address the concerns that, you know, the individual center directors can sort of address to the program officers, and the umbrella groups can obviously address that to, you know, the central staff within the Department of Bureau of Community Services. If they have the ability and the capability to provide those meals and deliver those meals, the conversation, you know, needed to happen. The conversation should have happened. And in some cases, the conversation did happen. And, you know, in other areas, I believe, and I could get back to you, certain providers were delivering those meals directly to those individuals that they are obviously know and love.
So is the private vendor option, is that an opt-in option for CBOs and providers, or is it
it's not really say so much an opt-in option. It's what the city needed to do. We were on a total lockdown. There was a pause, you know, everyone was scheduled to stay safe at home. And the Department for the Aging needed to address the greater food needs that we were getting for our older adults, specifically for our congregate meal setting. And the way to do that was to set up a centralized system where we had a provider, or I should say a vendor, prepare the food and or deliver directly to that individual. You know, non-essential, I mean, you know, there's an issue of non-essential and essential. And many of our providers opted to shut down their doors, you know, and but if there are providers that are saying the contrary, then we should definitely have that conversation and try to figure out, you know, hopefully try to address that now, and, you know, moving forward, see how we can work through that, especially if we have providers willing to take on that responsibility.
Okay, that's helpful to know. I will refrain from putting any program officers on blast.
But
we are
please
hearing,
do so via email. Please do so
of
via email
course,
so that at least I know, and that this way I could bring it to the attention of senior staff. Yeah.
right. But what and I'd like to offer you the feedback that we're hearing from our CBO partners and their providers who we've worked with for years, in whose services we've invested, right? You know, a lot of the providers are saying they can deliver just in that category that you just described a moment ago, that they are able to deliver, they are still able to provide these services, but they need the resources. And a lot of it has to do with the existing fiscal 20 contracts, and the delays in payments of those contracts, in particular by DFTA. And by delays, you know, in years past, typically payments are issued, you know, in Q2 of any year. But particularly in light of the pandemic, that timeline is particularly challenging, more so for a lot of the providers. And so there's been a lot of anxiety and concern by the providers, especially with the pegs, especially with the budget cuts, and having to deal with changing workforce and furloughs and layoffs, as to whether those delays in payments for services already rendered. These are for services as part of the fiscal 20 contracts, services that were rendered pre-March, pre-pandemic, and payments are still yet to be rendered. And there's anxiety by the providers, by CBOs, as to whether those delayed payments are actually going to mean no payments. Can you shed some more light in terms of the payment process at DFTA, so that our providers and CBOs have the resources to be able to continue doing the services, executing on the services for the remainder of the fiscal?
Yeah, in terms of payments and reimbursements, I wouldn't be able to speak with total authority on that. My suggestion would be, I will take note of it and get back to your office. But my ultimate suggestion would be for those providers and CBOs that have any issues, again, go back to your program officer. And if you have issues with the program officer, there's some miscommunication, we have a fiscal department, and our fiscal department, all of our providers, whether they be the individual centers and or their umbrella groups, are intimately involved and know of their fiscal agents that work with the Department for the Aging, and they can easily send out a notification to our fiscal department and get clarification on reimbursements and contracts and things of that nature. And also, I would advise that they obviously reach out to the Mayor's Office of Contracts. But for DFTA specific, program officers, go to your program officer, and definitely our fiscal department is available. And we, even pre-COVID, when any of our providers had any issues and or concerns regarding their contracts as it relates to fiscal reimbursements and ensuring that they're meeting certain goals and guidelines and deadlines, they know to reach out to our fiscal department, and our fiscal folks are definitely ready and willing and able to assist with any issues and or concern.
Okay. All right, but I'd like to alert to your attention that these are things that we are hearing from our partners, whom we rely upon to deliver these services to our elders, that the resources are not coming through, that it's augmenting the challenges that they're already facing in light of the pandemic. I have some more questions, but I want to, again, open up the floor to cabinet members if you have any comments or questions. And please feel free to, just raise your hand so I can see you, or if you want to type in the group chat if you have any questions or comments. Mr. Rodriguez, back to the home delivery from DFTA, the meal delivery. Can you tell us what the meals look like? And I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself again. Yeah.
Our meals contain either a variety of chilled, fresh chilled, shelf-stable meals. They are in line with our dietary requirements as it relates to the Older Adults Act. I apologize that I don't have that off the top of my head on what our meals do look like. I can definitely send you a photo via email as to what our meals consist of. But for the most part, they are a combination of their 5-day meals, fresh, shelf-stabled, with a fresh chilled a meal, as well as a fresh meal. And I can definitely send you a sample menu of what the vendors are sending out or preparing, I should say. It's specific to Queens.
I'm hearing from some of our constituents, and I'm hoping it's not true. So I'd like to verify it with you. I'm hearing from some of our constituents that some of these meals actually just consist of granola bars, cookies.
That's not a DIFTA meal.
Crackers.
That is not a DIFTA meal.
That is not DIFTA.
That is not a DIFTA meal.
Where would that be coming from?
Absolutely not.
Where would that be
It
coming
either
from?
could be coming from I couldn't say. I could not say, but that is definitely not a DIFTA meal. That I will say that is not a DIFTA meal.
So perhaps the constituents are receiving it elsewhere.
They could be receiving it from other sources, in addition to, not only our office, but other, either other agencies and or elected officials' offices are also providing, are also providing additional food resource options. Sometimes they come from, food pantries and other associated, volunteer organizations or CBOs that are providing meals, but that is definitely not a DIFTA meal, without a doubt. That is not a DIFTA meal.
And I'm feeling some assurance in seeing the
Absolutely.
astonishment reflected in your response to what we're hearing.
Yeah, there's been actually several articles and things that are out there in terms of, a meal that was delivered, and Department for the Aging has been referenced. And I'm not saying it was done. I'm just saying that the meals that are referenced in some of the articles and some of the news reports that are allegedly DIFTA meals are not indeed DIFTA meals. They are not they're not meals that we would not allow to be provided to our older adults. There are certain dietary restrictions. There are certain cultural options that we want to provide to our older adults, and also religious obligations and options that we would like to provide or have or need to provide to our older adults. And there are strict guidelines on those nutritional values as they relate to the food and the meals that we provide. So I know at one point someone, put something out that, the packages or the meals that they received were meager and just sort of granola and snack in general. That's not a DIFTA meal. We would not send anything of that nature out.
I certainly don't doubt that would be unacceptable by DIFTA standards. And again, I find assurance in hearing that. What types of accountability checks and, if you will, quality assurance does the department have on the vendors that you contract with to procure, to develop, and to deliver these meals in light of the expanded home delivery program? Because I don't doubt that is the intent and the mission and the standards of the department, but if the vendors are failing to deliver as promised, as per their contractual obligation with DIFTA, what kind of checks of accountability are in place right now to mitigate or eliminate the cost on our elders? I mean, they should not be receiving cookies and granola bars and crackers as a meal.
Right.
And I don't
As a
doubt that
meal,
that would be
right.
unacceptable by DFTA. But if
Yeah.
that is what they are receiving and that it is being represented as a DFTA meal by a DFTA contracted vendor, what are we doing to prevent that or to check that?
Well, one, it's just not happening. That is just not the case. So our current contracts, our vendors that are providing food right now, meals, are not providing snacks. They are providing shelf-stable, fresh, chilled meals, similar to what a lunch meal would be. Not a hot meal, obviously, because that's what someone would get as part of our congregate meal program prior to COVID. The assurance is the fact that our programs department is in constant communication with our vendors to ensure delivery. When I receive complaints from either your office or other offices, our external partners, in terms of individuals not receiving meals, and or if individuals may have received the meal and they believe it to be DFTA and it's not the case, it's just, to answer that question in short, is we've set up a system where there are meals, menus that have been prepared. We have a nutritionist who's on top of our vendors and ensures that what is going out in the name of the department is of nutritional value to our older adults.
Right.
That being said, because of the COVID, there had to be a restriction on shelf stable. At one point couldn't provide 5 days a week of shelf stable, let's say. But because of the seriousness and the issue that we have, shelf stable had to be included, and more shelf stable meals are included in our packages. But they still adhere to the nutritional guidelines and our meals. They're not snacks. Something like that just would not happen. And if it did, it just would
There
not
would be
happen.
consequences.
Yeah.
Have you seen a change?
Contracts would.
Yeah. There's got to be some
Seen a change?
clawbacks.
I'm sorry.
Have you seen a change or a difference in the quality or the quantity of the meals pre-COVID versus during COVID? And if so,
there's nothing. This is Jose Rodriguez speaking, not Jose working for DFTA. There is an obvious difference where you have a center that is, either contracting catered meals, where the meals are being done and they're hot and they're freshly made that day. There's an obvious difference, and this is me speaking. And just using one example, going out over the summer to one of our centers in another borough, just visiting. We had one center who was cooking for 2 of 3 of their other sites. They have a kitchen space and a facility to do so. And as soon as you walked in, obviously the aroma hit you, and it was just like, whoa, this is great. And they're like, yeah, no, we're preparing these meals. We're doing this, that, and the other, and we're getting ready. Once we feed our folks here, or at the same time we're feeding our folks, we're packaging this and going to our other centers, which are several blocks away. But there is a difference of having that meal being freshly prepared here, where you are, and sitting down. That's done every day. We have confidence in the vendors that we have, and any inconsistencies we've addressed. And for the most part, nothing beats that home cooked meal, so to speak. But we're under some strange circumstances where we're trying to do the best that we can in terms of addressing those food insecurities that our older adults are facing now.
Okay. And it's an unenviable job that the department has, certainly. And I'm sure there are a number of constituents, part of various programs that are still, I don't know if they're kind of in the backlog or on a wait list. They're not receiving some meal delivery program. One that comes to mind, it's the Queens Center for Gay Seniors. They're still not receiving the deliveries from DFTA. If there are when there are other organizations or constituencies who used to or who need it, who can our district managers call? Who can my team call?
No, absolutely. Those types of inquiries and complaints are just unacceptable. And we are doing our best to troubleshoot and try to figure out as to why that's happening. Please send those inquiries to myself, obviously. Hopefully, and I will check back with our Queens rep, Doreen Zong. Hopefully the district managers and the community boards obviously have her contact information. If you have not heard from her in some time, please bring that to my attention. And, obviously if you have those types of inquiries, bring it to my attention. And my email is jrodriguez@aging.nyc.gov. And I'll send that on the chat as well.
Great. We do have a comment or question from District Manager Marie Adam Ovide of Board 8.
Yes. Since we seem to be unsure as to what the meals look like, is it possible to send us like a week's menu? At least if a senior citizen calls to complain, we can let them know what they should expect.
I don't see why not. Yes, I will refer back to our programs office, our Bureau of Community Service, and get that information. I don't see why not. I don't. And if for some reason, again, I'm not even going to say my second part. I don't see why not. Sure.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Are there any other comments or questions from the cabinet? Thank you again, Mr. Rodriguez. I know I don't think you were planning to deliver the presentation or even much less field all these questions that we had, but thank you for doing it gracefully and graciously. We look forward to the follow-up that you mentioned, in particular, some of the sample meals that the department expects its vendors to be delivering to our elders so that we can help manage expectations, but also help the department keep the vendors accountable because there are some, we want to prevent any unscrupulous deliveries, and it's not about just, gotcha. It's really to make sure that our elders are not getting shortchanged in terms of quality and quantity to the extent possible by the city. Also, we look forward to hearing from you about what happens after the end of the fiscal year, which is right around the corner. How does that impact the providers and the CBOs? July 1, there's a lot of anxiety and uncertainty is the worst when it comes to anxiety. So some sort of predictability would be very helpful for the CBOs and the providers, but also to my office when we're figuring out our budgetary priorities in light of a changing world and budgetary reality. As well as if you can look into a little bit about the Queens Center for Gay Seniors in particular, but other programs that are still on the wait list for whatever reason, as to why they are, or what maybe the predictability when they can expect to get online, and then finally looking into the payments for services rendered pre-COVID on existing fiscal 20 contracts. Those are resources that the providers are heavily relying on, and they are eager and able, notwithstanding those resources that they are still awaiting. But again, thank you again for being so gracious with your time and for your patience. And it's very reassuring to hear from you, your reaction to some of the things that we've been hearing from our constituents and from our service providers. So we will lean on you to hold your vendors accountable.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All
Yes,
right.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. And with that, that concludes our agenda items. I wanted to again remind our cabinet members, we've got the Interfaith Vigil this evening at 5 o'clock. It will stream live online on our website. Tomorrow we have the Jobs Recruitment Fair, April 22nd at 2 p.m. We'll also have the Department of Education returning online next Thursday at our Queens Parent Advisory Board meeting. All of these events are virtual, and we'll do the best that we can with our technological limitations. And with that, I believe
Borough
our
President,
yes.
before you, I just need to check just for attendance. Is Community Board 4 here? Or Community Board 7? Or Board 9? Okay.
And again, to our district managers, thank you for staying on the front lines. Look forward to continuing to work with you in the coming weeks of this pandemic. We know that, again, the pandemic has not left anyone unscathed. And we know that we've lost folks in our families, in our communities, and certainly our community boards have not been immune to this pandemic and the cost of it. So, so my office is here with you, and we are here 24/7, for better or for worse. But thank you, district managers, for everything that you do for your respective districts. And with that, I'd like to conclude this meeting. The next meeting at the Borough Cabinet is May. Someone help me on it. What's the date? It's a Tuesday, May 19th, 9:30 a.m. To be determined whether it will be virtual or at Borough Hall, and we will keep you apprised. But whatever we do, it will be to maximize your safety. So thank you again, and have a wonderful day.